yes, I'm going in there and now it's a pro fight. It's on my record and I'm going to fucking put him down. And if people are pissed about it, then watch.
So there was this big press conference for the Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul fight. And man, let me tell you, things got crazy real quick. Like there was a brutal brawl that broke out, and it was wild. Mike and Jake were throwing punches left and right. It was like something straight out of a movie. It was definitely a press conference to remember, that's for sure. So, despite all the talk about the Tyson versus Paul fight being just an exhibition match, it turns out it's going to be the real deal. MVP and Holden Boxing dropped the bomb on April 29, saying that it's going to be a professional fight, sanctioned by the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulations. Yes, this is the real deal.
This fight has just gotten sanctioned as a pro fight. That's exciting. Not going to be an exhibition anymore.
So, they've decided to ramp up the hype for this Tyson versus Paul showdown by throwing not one, but two press conferences in May. The first one went down last night, and let's just say it didn't exactly go according to plan. But hey, maybe that's what we expected all along, right? Word on the street is that Jake wasn't too thrilled about the rules. Could be anything, really. Maybe he thinks they're stacked against him, facing off against a seasoned pro like Tyson. Or maybe he's just trying to shake things up and keep everyone on their toes. Now, let's break down these rules. Typically, in your regular boxing match, you've got 3-minute rounds and 10-ounce gloves. That's the setup where Tyson made his mark, knocking out opponents left and right. But for this fight, they're switching things up. They're cutting the rounds down to just 2 minutes each. Might not seem like much, but it could make a big difference, especially for Tyson, who's no spring chicken at almost 58 years old. Shorter rounds might play to his advantage, keeping him fresher in the ring. And then there's the gloves. Instead of the usual 10-ounce ones, they're beefing it up to 14 ounces. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Those heavier gloves could work in Paul's favor, providing more cushioning against Tyson's heavy hits. When these rule changes first hit the scene, nobody was owning up to them. But now, it looks like Jake Paul is pointing the finger straight at Tyson. Yep, all his rules, Paul said on his podcast. I agreed to all his rules.
Yeah, all his rules. So I agreed to all his rules. You know, pro fight is what he wanted. 14-ounce gloves is what he wanted. 8 2-minute rounds is what he wanted.
But Tyson's publicist, Joanne Mignano, is singing a different tune. According to her, the rules proposed for the bout were actually just 2-minute rounds for 8 rounds, with no mention of 14-ounce gloves. And Tyson seems pretty cool with those shorter rounds, seeing it as a way to keep Paul from dancing around too much in the ring. Jake mentioned his approach to attending press conferences, stating,
Thing is, man, is I've like put on this character of like being brash and cocky and all of these things, and drawn a lot of like hate for that, and I could easily go the villain and the bad guy. I think it's fun. I love doing it. I'm great at it. Always was like the class clown and shit like that, so I can snap into that bullshit.
As the press conference kicked off, Jake wasted no time diving into the trash talk, aiming straight for Mike. He was relentless, going after Tyson for picking the shorter rounds and heavier gloves, claiming it was just a ploy to weaken his punches. "You're scared of me, Mike," he shouted, his voice dripping with confidence. But he didn't stop there. Jake went for the jugular, mocking Mike's age like there was no tomorrow. "Hey, Grandpa, you sure you're up for this?" he jeered, a cocky grin spreading across his face. The crowd erupted into laughter, and you could see the fire in Tyson's eyes. "Look at him, guys," Jake stated, gesturing towards Tyson with a smirk. The legend himself, Iron Mike Tyson. But let's be real here, guys. He's not the same Tyson he used to be. I mean, come on, look at him. He's old, he's tired, and he's past his prime. He had Tyson right where he wanted him, and he wasn't about to let up. Please, give me a break. He knows he can't handle 3-minute rounds anymore. Hell, he probably can't even handle 2 minutes. Jake wasn't finished yet. "And what's with the 14-ounce gloves, Mike?" Jake taunted. "Are you afraid your punches won't pack enough power? Are you worried I'll knock you into next week?" The insults kept coming, each one more cutting than the last. Jake was on fire, and he knew it. He had Tyson on the ropes, and he wasn't about to let up now. As Jake continued his onslaught, Mike finally spoke up. "You talk a big game, kid," he said, but let's see if you can back it up in the ring. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife as Jake Paul, with a smug grin on his face, raised a prime drink in his hand. Without a second thought, he hurled the drink towards Mike Tyson, the liquid splattering across Tyson's chest. In an instant, all hell broke loose. Tyson unleashed a flurry of blows that caught Jake Paul off guard. Tyson landed powerful punches that sent Jake staggering backward. Despite Jake's attempts to hold his ground, Tyson's sheer force and precision overwhelmed him. The situation grew more and more chaotic by the second, with punches landing left and right as the two men grappled with each other. It was a scene straight out of a brawl, with no end in sight until finally, the security team managed to pull them apart. What was supposed to be a routine press conference to promote their upcoming fight descended into chaos as tempers flared and punches flew. For Jake Paul, the fallout from the brawl has been swift and severe. In the wake of the altercation, concerns about his health have reached a fever pitch, with reports surfacing that he may have sustained serious injuries during the scuffle. Speculation runs rampant about the extent of his condition, with some sources even suggesting that he may have suffered a concussion or other trauma to the head.
There's like 50 people, I don't understand.
The revelation that doctors found chronic traumatic encephalopathy in Jake Paul's brain sends shockwaves rippling through the sports world. CTE, a degenerative brain condition commonly associated with repeated head trauma, is a diagnosis that carries serious implications for the young fighter's health and future in the sport. For Jake Paul, the news is a devastating blow, throwing into question not only his ability to compete in the upcoming fight against Mike Tyson, but also his long-term well-being. The implications of a CTE diagnosis are sobering, with the condition often leading to a range of debilitating symptoms, including memory loss, cognitive decline, and mood swings. As the reality of his diagnosis sinks in, Jake is forced to confront the harsh reality of his situation. The prospect of facing off against a seasoned veteran like Tyson takes on a whole new level of risk and uncertainty in light of his condition. The toll that repeated head trauma has taken on his brain raises serious concerns about his ability to safely continue competing in the sport. As for Mike Tyson, the brawl has only added fuel to the fire of controversy that has surrounded him in recent years. While some fans have hailed his aggressive response to Jake Paul's provocations as a return to form for the legendary boxer, others worry that his actions may have put his own health at risk. Questions swirl about the long-term impact of his decision to engage in physical violence outside of the ring, with many wondering whether he may have exacerbated existing health issues or incurred new injuries as a result of the brawl. As news of the brawl spreads like wildfire across social media and news outlets, the reaction from fans and pundits alike is swift and impassioned. Some condemn the fighters for their reckless behavior and the chaos that erupted during what was supposed to be a simple promotional event. Others, however, view the brawl as a sign of the intense rivalry and raw emotion that will make the upcoming fight between Tyson and Paul must-see television. Word on the street is Jake's considering pulling the plug off this fight. CTE ain't no joke. It's the big bad wolf of head injuries. And now, with Jake hearing those whispers about it, he's got cold feet about stepping into the ring with Iron Mike. And now that it's reared its ugly head, Jake's thinking twice about stepping into the ring with Tyson. Can you blame him? I sure can't. I mean, let's be real here. Tyson's no joke, and going up against him in this situation is like playing Russian roulette with your life. But let's talk about Jake Paul's track record when it comes to ducking out of fights. This ain't his first rodeo. Jake's been pulling these stunts for a while now. You see, Jake's got a bit of a reputation for coming up with excuses when the going gets tough. It's like clockwork. As soon as things start looking dicey, he's quick to start drumming up reasons to back out of the ring. And faking injuries? You better believe he's got that down to a science. And let's not forget the cherry on top, the press conference brawl. Now, call me a skeptic, but something smells fishy here. Jake's got a history of pulling these kinds of stunts, and suddenly, just when things are heating up with Tyson, there's a conveniently timed brawl. Color me suspicious. There's whispers in the wind that the whole press conference brawl was just a smokescreen cooked up by Jake Paul himself. Sure, it made for some great headlines, but let's be real here. It was just another excuse for Jake to play the victim card and avoid facing Tyson head-on. all so he could pin the blame on Mike Tyson and wiggle his way out of the fight. But hey, let's take a step back and look at the facts. The brawl at the press conference was chaotic, to say the least. Fists flying, tempers flaring. And who's at the center of it all? You guessed it, Jake Paul. Jake Paul's been running his mouth ever since that press conference brawl went down. He's been pointing fingers and playing the blame game at Mike Tyson. He's out there spewing nonsense about how Tyson's to blame for everything. Listen to this from his latest interview. Tyson's a washed-up has-been who can't handle losing, so he starts throwing punches like a petulant child. It's pathetic, really. And that's not all. He's been going on and on about his own health, acting like he's the picture of perfection. But let's not forget, this is the same guy who's been faking injuries left and right to avoid tough fights. Talk about hypocrisy. Here's another one for you. I'm the future of boxing, and Tyson knows it. He's just scared to admit that his time has come and gone. So instead of facing me like a man, he resorts to cheap shots and dirty tactics. It's a disgrace to the sport. But here's the kicker. Jake's not fooling anyone with his little charade. We see through his lies. He can try to pin the blame on Tyson all he wants, but the truth will always come out in the end. But he was not the only one in that brawl. Tyson was not the one to start it, but it has affected his health too. One of the most pressing concerns for Tyson has been his battle with serious heart conditions, which have posed a significant threat to his health and well-being. In recent years, Tyson has been open about his struggles with high blood pressure, a condition that has forced him to confront his mortality and take steps to prioritize his health. But it wasn't just high blood pressure that Tyson had to contend with. In a terrifying brush with death, Tyson revealed that he had come dangerously close to suffering a heart attack. The doctors say Tyson can't fight Jake Paul. They warn Tyson's too hurt from the brawl, and if he fights again, he could mess up his brain and heart real bad. They're serious about it, saying Tyson's health matters more than anything else.
Okay, let's go down. Mike Tyson has been warned that his fight versus Jake Paul could see him suffer rupturing.
Tyson's got to listen to them. It's tough, because he loves boxing, but risking his health ain't worth it. The damage from all those fights before is catching up with him, and going back in the ring could make it worse. Let's face the facts here. Tyson's no spring chicken anymore. At 58 years old, he's seen more ringside action than most of us have had hot dinners. Now, I ain't no doctor, but when brain health experts start sounding the alarm bells, you know it's serious business. According to the bigwigs in white coats, it's just not a good idea for Tyson to be throwing punches at his age. Take it from Art Kramer, a big shot professor over at Northeastern University. He's saying that Tyson's playing with fire here, risking his health and well-being for the sake of a few rounds in the ring. And let's not forget about those earlier traumatic brain injuries. They're like ghosts from the past, haunting Tyson's every move. You see, as we age, our bodies change. The brain shrinks in size, making it more vulnerable to injury. And those blood vessels? They ain't what they used to be. They shrink and become brittle. The road's been rocky for Tyson, no doubt about it, with drug problems lurking in the shadows and a never-say-die attitude that's as fierce as it is admirable. He's been through the ringer more times than we can count. Tyson himself hasn't been shy about his own mortality. On his podcast, Hotboxing, he's dropped some real talk about his own expiration date, staring it down in the mirror as those little spots on his face serve as a reminder that time waits for no one. We're all gonna die one day, of course. Then, when I look in the mirror, I see those little spots on my face, he said. I say, wow, that means my expiration date is coming close, really soon, Tyson said in the podcast. And then there's the photos. Tyson, wheelchair-bound in an airport terminal, clutching onto a walking stick like it's his lifeline. It's enough to send shivers down your spine, folks. But Tyson's not one to back down from a fight, even when the opponent is as relentless as Father Time himself. But let's not jump to conclusions just yet. Tyson's a fighter through and through, and he's faced worse than a little sciatica. Sure, it's a pain in the neck, or should I say the back, but he's taking it in stride, showing gratitude for the blessings he's got and the battles he's won. I have sciatica every now and then. It flares up. When it flares up, I can't even talk, he said.
All right, Ted, the other day I saw a picture of you. You were in a wheelchair. What was that all about?
Oh, I have sciatica every now and then. It flares up, and when it flares up, I can't even talk.
With all the drama surrounding the Tyson versus Jake Paul showdown, it's anyone's guess whether this fight will actually happen. The saga is far from over, that's for sure. But one thing's for certain, whether the fight goes ahead or not, you can bet your bottom dollar that we'll be keeping a close eye on every twist and turn. So if you enjoyed this video and want to stay up to date on all the latest in the world of boxing, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Ring that notification bell so you never miss an update, because trust me, you won't want to miss a single moment of this roller coaster ride. Your support means the world to us, and we appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep on punching.